Before we do that, I want to talk about how you prevent yourself from volcanoing your project. And uh, I guess the quick little reference there is if you don't know how a volcano works, basically a lot of stuff is happening and then all of a sudden an eruption happens. And sometimes you have warning, most cases you don't. So the idea here is how can you prevent from like completely derailing your coding project? And yeah, take a small issue in Git, have it erupt into a massive issue that causes anxiety, depression, and lots of like hyperventilating if you're me. Uh, I'm going to use two examples here. They're from this person named Jay Miller, who never does bad things in GitHub. The first one, now to add these 2 days worth of code to GitHub finally, git add dot. Oh, whoops, I just add an environment variable. Let's revert, and ta-da, it's all gone. So the backstory behind this was I was working on a project that I'll be presenting at Python Web Conference, which the CFP closes tomorrow. Be sure to check that out if you're interested. And in that project, it was originally just kind of a rough idea. I was playing around with some stuff. And then finally I said, you know what, let's just add this to GitHub. Sure, let's do it. Quick git add period, because that'll just grab everything. That way I'm caught up. And yeah, I forgot that I had some security keys in there, which, you know, we learned you don't ever push your security keys up to GitHub. That's never good. So I decided, well, let me just revert before I push. Wrong. So if you revert, basically what you're doing is you're creating a new commit of a previous state. So it doesn't actually get rid of the problem. The content would still be there. You could go through the history. You could find that information. You don't want to do that. And since this was a new project, there wasn't a history that I could, you know, check out to go to. So the way that you solve this problem is if you've already pushed, you're going to have to delete that repo. Sorry, just the way that it is. If you didn't already push, remove the Git subfolder there and then reinitialize and make sure that you don't repeat that problem. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Example 2, this one gets a little bit wilder. Who just spent the last 3 hours trying to squash a commit, accidentally uploaded some CSV files and it's making unnecessary pulls? Yeah, that was this guy. So the backstory behind this was working on a project that I'll be presenting at PyCascades. So decided to upload some stuff. That way I could have a nice little notebook and a repo that people could check out. And realized that I uploaded about 3 gigs worth of CSV files into my GitHub repository. GitHub wasn't too happy with that, neither was I. And if you wonder, well, it's no big deal, just add it to your git ignore and you're done. The problem is anytime you have to fork or download that code, you also pull the history, which means that you also have those files sitting in the history somewhere. Again, not fun. Nobody wants to do this. So how do I remove just the one commit, as you can see on the side here, that's in the middle of a bunch of other commits? Well, via Microsoft employee and Pythonista extraordinaire Anthony Shaw, git rebase-I and choose the commit hash before the one you want to drop. So let's look at this again. If we want to remove really quick, we want to remove this one. How do we do that? Well, you just simply go to the one before it. If I want to remove commit 0463 ... I just need to rebase and squash down to commit 6FB0. Now, the thing with that is you've got to be careful. I had tried this several times, and that's why there was added history. So I will say, try not to do this to begin with. That's the easiest way to do it, honestly. The best answer is, how do you not volcano your project? Simple. You don't live near volcanoes. That's like the best result. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. So here's some preventative measures. Don't load everything at once. I did this. I'll probably will say this again. Git add dot is an enemy. Git commit dash a, if you don't know what you're doing, is an enemy. Bonus points to IDEs that have Git workflow built into them because it allows you to specifically tell which files you want to commit. This is good Git hygiene. It'll help you to make sure. And one more thing, if you look at some of these commit messages, add assets to Git ignore. That's because I tried to fix the problem. Update 2020. What does that mean? Add assets to Git ignore. Again, we're doing this again. So good commit messages only commit the files that you know you're committing. Yes, you might have to do multiple commits. Yes, it might be annoying. It will help you also prevent from volcanoing your project. And the other thing that you can do is before you do anything, after you git init, you can run a Git template or you can create your own Git script. If you use npx git ignore Python, it will literally generate a .git ignore file for you, and it will have the majority of the Python things that you need to think about. This is the same as going into GitHub, creating a new project and saying this is a Python project. I highly recommend doing that. It also works for Node, React, and many other things. So npx git ignore, or if you want to create your own bash file, you can just say, echo nvrc or whatever your environment files are to a git ignore, node modules, JSON, CSV, any of these other files that can get out of control. If you set this up so that it always runs whenever you create a new script or a new Git repo, it will save you a lot of time. I tend to go with the first one. And lastly, no git add dot. I know I said it before, but for real, git status before you get wrecked. Like if you don't add everything, or if you're going to add everything, run git status first, just to make sure you know what's being added. That is probably the biggest tip that I can give you. So I'm Jay Miller. If you want to learn about other projects that I've volcanoed in the past and probably will do in the future, you can follow me on Twitter or go to my website. Thank you.
Any questions about volcanoing projects?
Yeah, I just have a few comments. That's pretty good, and I have a long history of volcanoing things, so I guess I've got a bunch of tricks. One thing is when you git add, you don't actually commit it to anything. You can always undo the add, like it's a pretty benign operation. And another thing, I'm gonna paste in the chat my favorite resource. It's called Git. And it's basically when you did something like how you undo the
that is a very good resource.
Yeah, because it's basically just goes, it covers what you covered today, plus like another 5 different things, like, and that's and how you recover. And
you should call it Oh Shit Hub.
No, because GitHub is not Git. GitHub is just I mean.
I will say the one thing you mentioned, like when you do git add dot, it doesn't commit. You're right. It doesn't commit and it doesn't push that information up. I think the one thing with that is we have to remember that like once you've added it to that queue, most people aren't going to think about how you unadd it, which is like git rm -- cached, yada 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 yada.
Yeah.
So I think if anyone is like me, you have it in your history somewhere. It's like git add dot and like and g like git commit all message, upload that stuff I did today. Like, yeah, tried not to do that. Shortcuts tend to be the easiest way to destroy yourself. And git reset is another good one.
Yeah. So there is not reflow git. Can you raise comment and I guess you can.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So it's called Git Reflog. That's my favorite Git command.
I think your autocorrect doesn't like you right now.
Yeah. Autocorrect. How you turn it on? Yeah, it's not a flow, it's a log. LOG. Can you?
There is a question in the chat from Jeremy who asks, should Git commits have patterns that don't get put into repos?
You can actually put it in your home directory. You can put git ignore file and.
Yeah, it's actually in .config under your home directory, and then it's
config. Yeah, because I stole my
it
home.
is on Linux.
Yeah, I stole my home directory from my old boss like 3 jobs ago, and I haven't like completely explored what it does, but there is over like 300 files, and
it's .config/git/ignore. And you can have a global git ignore file that will apply to all of your repos. However, you have to be careful with this. This works for you, but like, if you, for example, put node modules in there or something, then when you send that down to somebody else, if they don't have the same setting, it'll be like, what's this node modules directory? And then they'll add it to the repo.
And also sometimes, because mine says like ignore SQL file, so ignore CSV. And when you actually do need to add them, you always have to force add, and sometimes you push the bunch of code and you say because when you do git status, it says everything clean, but then some things got globally git ignored, and then you have to.
And this is why I think topics like this are so important, because we literally just mentioned 5 other ways that you can prevent yourself from doing this. But in most cases, we only try to utilize the ones that we have heard of, at the time. So by all means, if you have a technique that works for a very specific use case, please, please, please do lightning talks like this so that it saves people like me a lot of anxiety and stress when I'm trying to figure out how do I undo what I just screwed up.
Also, if you do accidentally do it, change the API keys.
Yes. Yes. Even if you have to delete your GitHub repo, just change them, because you don't know, and you don't want to ever be that person that made a mistake and then paid for it later.
I have 3 sort of Nubian questions.
Okay.
I guess they're pretty quick. So the git dot, is that similar to saying get the root and get the wildcard of everything and push it up to everybody?
Yes.
And that's bad.
Unless
you status it first.
Yeah. Well, if you status it all, you're gonna have a list of what will be committed and what hasn't been added yet. So if you do git add, the things that haven't been added will now be added, so that when you do your git commit, it will include those things in there as well.
I see. And is let's say you did git dot, is there a screen flow similar to on Linux apt update where it shows you what it's doing?
No.
It's transparent?
No feedback whatsoever.
Ooh. Is there a -- flag where you could say verbose or anything like that?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because I was thinking, if you just did Control-C, is that bad to just kill the git dot?
Actually, Git is very transactional. So if you interrupt it in the middle, it usually leaves the things in a good state. But that's what the reflog is. It's you should.
Oh, that Git Reflog.
Yeah, you should look at it's 2 weeks insurance policy on your Git. You can undo to the. You can undo so it's 2 weeks. It depends how your garbage collection set up. So it's for some people it's in the same config directory where.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to hog all the time. The CSV example you had, Jay, was that because you were working kind of offline with some huge database kind of files and you didn't realize they were still in there?
Yes. So the short of that, and Chris knows what's coming. I've been working on a project where I'm indexing police call records. So I basically uploaded about 6 years of police call records to GitHub, and it didn't. Yeah, no, it was not happy.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, I'm familiar with that data set.
Any last thoughts?
Well, they say experience is that thing that you gain just after the moment that you really needed it. So I definitely appreciate that talk, and learning from other people's mistakes is the best way to learn, right?
I'm telling you, if you want to learn the easy way, just follow my Twitter account, because usually it'll be happiness, 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 instant dread.
One last tip. This is one that I use, just it's been my saving grace, is I always do git commit -v, and then it takes you into a place where you can write the commit message, but it shows you every file and a full diff of everything that's going to be committed when you do it. So that way you can look at it before you make the mistake. Last thoughts?